It is a little warm. But I like it like that, frankly.
Yeah, but this isn't warm. This is in the 80s. Wait till you get to 115.
Marker.
Billy Archibald. It's not William. I've been called that, but it's Billy. I was born in Alabama, place called, it was in the country, so they call it Greene County. That's in Alabama. The closest little junction was Utah, and the county seat was Utah. And that place was about a block square.
Well, Mr. Archibald, this is a real treat.
How about that?
I'm so glad to have an opportunity to talk to you, get to know you. In your lifetime, what would you say is a part of your life that maybe shaped your life the most?
It's kind of hard to say. Being an old country boy, you know, there was those virtues and values growing up in the country, and that gave me the background. And then springing from there, realizing potentials in the world, and then deciding to go after things.
Yeah.
I remember maybe one of the things that got me started and wanting to have a better life than I was kind of used to in the country. I was working at the A&P grocery store, and that's in the South back in the days when there was absolute segregation. And when I started working there, the only job we could have, the blacks or colored, what you want to call it, was carrying out groceries.
Yes.
You had the clerks, the box boys, the boys that stood in the thing and bagged up the groceries, and the stocking people who took care of the shelves and all that kind of thing. And I was, one day it was raining, and the white boys would meet me at the door with a bag. They stand inside, and when I come up, they put them in, and I went out. And I said to myself then, Billy, you better go somewhere and be somebody. And I started building on that.
That point on.
That point on.
Now, how many brothers and sisters did you have? And tell us a little bit about your mom and dad.
I have 9 brothers, 2 sisters, and there are only 3 of us left. And my dad was a farmer. He was an ambitious young man. And my mother was just a housekeeper. She kept the house. Strangely enough, my mother, I think, had a 6th grade education, and my father didn't have any education at all. And my mother taught him to read and write.
Wow. So what year were you born?
1930.
Okay.
So I'm 91.
Okay. And so your parents were, 1930. So they were born like right at the end of slavery, or right
Well, it was at the end of the century. I think my dad was born in 1982, and my mother was born a couple of years after.
1882.
1882.
Right.
Yeah.
So Reconstruction was over. Jim Crow was
Oh
started.
yeah. Just plain Jim Crow. Yeah.
So what was that like?
It was atrocious, very atrocious. I remember a lot of things that happened. I was working at I don't remember the place now, but this man came up to me and he was complaining about something, and he cussed me out and everything. But I just looked at him, just stood and looked at him in his eyes while he talked to me.
Yeah.
Didn't drop my head or anything. And finally, after he got through telling me what he would do to me and all this kind of things, he just dropped his head and walked away.
Yeah. So that's how you had to deal with those things.
That's how you had to deal with it. That's how you had to deal with it.
Yeah, because if you decided to fight back.
Oh, no, there was no fighting back. There was no fighting back. If you stood up for yourself and people thought that you with disrespect and all this kind of stuff, that was just it. Anything could happen to you. Nothing, there would be no consequence.
What did that feel like to not be able to fight back?
Well, it's something you were kind of used to. You had to develop to a point where you decided that you want to do a little rebellion, and then you had to decide how to do it. You couldn't just. Well, I remember going back to the job in the market. What I would do instead, when I wasn't carrying the package out, I would go and bag the groceries.
Right.
So I didn't just stand around and wait for him to give me a bag. I would go and bag groceries.
Right.
So the manager of the market started me to bagging. If I was bagging groceries, I only took out the bags that I bagged. I didn't have to take out anybody else.
Right.
And then when I started being a bag boy, when I didn't have anything to do bagging, I would go on the floor and stock the shelves. So then they made me a stock clerk. And then I was conscious about things that were out. I would go find things that were out and make sure they were on the shelf. And then I was made I was manager of the stock. I marked you marked everything in the bag. So they put me in charge of marking the groceries. And I remember, I think when I was a stock clerk, I was up front. When they got behind, they would call me up. And when I finished, they would tell me to go back to my regular job in the back. So this white boy met me at the door and said, he told me to take these groceries.
Yeah.
And I just kept walking. I told him, you take them. So he came back in the back and said, was making a comment about I guess he said disrespecting him. He told me to take these groceries and I didn't do it. And he said, the next time, and I cut him off. I said, the next time you're going to do just what you did that time, you're going to take them out yourself.
Now, this was a customer that said that.
Oh, no.
Oh, this is one of the guys.
One of the employees, one of the bag boys up there, we boys there, he said that to me. And then the manager walked up and he told the guy to go out, just drop it, get out front, going up front.
So now, was this other employee, was he higher in rank?
No. He was white. That's the only difference. He was one of the guys who were bagging groceries. As a stock clerk, I was a little level before him.
Yeah,
As a stock manager who did all the marketing, I was 2 levels above him. Because I asked one of the boys one time to take out the flour when they came in, and people wanted to put the flour because it's dust and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So there would be a lot of things that are out, and you had to mark them and get them out there. So the manager saw me taking flour out on the floor. He said, where are you going? I said, we're out of flour. This flour got to go there. He said, you go back there and do your job. I'll take care of that. So that was my evolution. That was the beginning of my feeling some self-worth.
Yes, because you really created your own job. Once
But
they realized that you were smart.
And industrious, I didn't wait around just to do what I was doing.
Right.
Anything that had to be done, I would do it.
That's the way a lot of people need to think these days.
Oh yeah.
So let's talk about your brothers and sisters and kind of get to know your family dynamic.
Yeah. Well, let's start. At one time, we were all at home. That's when my dad we were farmers, and he had rented a place from a man, from some, the people who owned it, the white guy who owned it. And he took the boys all across, we cleaned up the swamps down there where a spring run through, and planted it. You had grow corn out there have 4 or 5 ears on the stalk. Stalks would grow 7, 8, 9 feet tall because it was a bottomland rich soil.
Yeah.
And he went and planted some cotton out there, but he couldn't do that. Cotton can't grow in that kind of environment. It has to have a dry place because it's not a green plant to grow tall. it has to grow small like and dry so that it fills out and dries out so the cotton fluffs come out. So he had them to clean that out, and he planted a garden for the family to eat out of, and a garden to feed the animals out of. And he went and bought 100 trees, peach trees and fruit trees, and planted them all through the land where, cotton fields or whatever fields were. Just plant all these, and we all worked at, the boys and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, because how many boys were there?
10.
10 boys and how many girls?
2 girls.
Oh, man.
12.
So
12.
he had a whole crew.
He had the crew, and as they grew up, a few of them left. As we moved out from there. But what happened at that particular place? It's I hate to say it, but there was another man, a black family, lived across from us, and they envied us because what he would do, when he would lay by his crop, he would have the widows, the folks who didn't have much. They would come and pick things and give them half of it. Like he planted corn, and then at the end of the year he planted peas that grow up around the corn, so he had plenty of peas. Plant potato patches and all that kind of stuff. And he would plant potatoes and have some left out, and he had the folks come pick them. They come and pick stuff, And sometimes if there wasn't much, I would just tell them to go ahead and take it. He wouldn't take any of it. And so this man said to the owner that we were trying to live like white people.
You're just trying to live good.
Just trying to live good. So what the man did, the owner came up to my dad in July. That's when you've laid by everything, you're waiting for the harvest, and told me I had to move.
Wow. Now was this his land?
No, rented. No, he wasn't a sharecropper. He rented it from me.
Okay.
He was renting. There were sharecroppers and there were renters. If you were a sharecropper, the man you bought it from, he had a store. He'd give you everything, your seeds, to give you food and all that kind of stuff. And at the end of the year, he added up what you owed him, and then he split the difference between you and him.
Okay.
That's a sharecropper.
Right.
If you wasn't a sharecropper, you rented, and you had to pay so much for the land. If you say you had to pay so many bales of cotton, so many bushels of corn, all that kind of stuff, you just paid him what was his rent. Okay, so he told him he had to move. And then he said, I got to, I can't move, I got to give him a crop. He said he had to move. And then he told him that he was trespassing on his property. He said, I can't see how I can be trespassing on property when I live on it.
And this is your father with 12 kids.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if they were all home or not. At that time, I don't think they were all home. Because some went in the service and all that stuff. So he set the sheriff out. The sheriff told me he had him leave. And he said, I can't say I can make me move, just in the middle of the year. He said, well, I can't say I can do it either. But he said, I can't protect you. He said, if somebody came by and shut up your house and killed your kids or your family, nothing I can do about it.
So what happened?
So we moved.
Oh, wow. After you had planted all them trees and all that?
Everything had all this, and not only just the trees, but all of the cotton, the corn, potatoes, all the crops were just it was before harvest. July is before harvest time.
Yeah.
You start harvest about the end of October or September.
So where'd y'all go?
We moved over to a little house and planted this. We couldn't plant much, so we planted. We planted something, and I don't know how we made it out. And then we moved again after that to another place. But this was probably broke my dad's spirit. He never kind of got over that.
Yeah. About how old was he at that time?
Oh, he probably 40s or 50s or something like that.
How old were you at that time?
Oh, I was a little boy. I was just a little kid.
Wow.
I was a little kid. I was probably pre-teenager, teenager, something like that. That was a long time ago.
How about your mom? How was she?
Well, she just took care of the house. She kept the family together. You know, when we got older, well, she was a homemaker. You won't call it that. And when we were all older, she wrote to everybody, and everybody with the brothers and sisters didn't pretty much communicate with one another, but they wrote. Everybody wrote home to mom, and mom wrote to everybody else.
Okay.
Yeah.
So now, where are you in the line of the 12?
I'm the what is it? Eighth son, and the ninth child, I think it is.
So
I have two. No, three brothers younger than me. I'm the ninth child, and I have two brothers younger than me.
Okay.
No, let me see, David, Joseph. Yeah, David and Joseph.
So can you call you remember all the names?
Oh yeah. Start at the top. The oldest was Horace. Abner.
Hold on one second. You're talking about your siblings. Starting from the top.
Horace, Abner, Robert, Fletcher, Freeman, Ike, Aladdin, Billy, Joseph, David, and the girls is Mary and Rosie.
They were the babies?
No, Mary, no. I left it.
It wasn't in order.
Yeah, not the ladies. I kind of forget what order, but Rose was younger than me, but David, Joseph, Rosa, those in that order from the bottom, and then me next. And I think Mary came between Fletcher and Freeman.
Obviously, everybody had their chores, everybody had their jobs. With a family that size, you had to have had a great deal of fun.
Pretty much, you know. We kind of in groups, you know. Aladdin and I kind of went around together most of the time. He would discipline me if he thought I did something wrong, but he didn't allow anybody else to do it. You couldn't bother me. Kids didn't mess over me with him.
That's right.
You know, but if he told me to do something and I didn't do it, I had to suffer the consequences.
How much older was he?
He was next to me.
Okay.
But he was called Big Boy. He was at age 13. I think he wore 12 shoes, and he was about almost 6 feet tall at age 12.
Okay. He was a big boy.
Oh yeah, big. Called him a long boy. Long boy. He rode a motorcycle. But in his later time, he was in a motorcycle accident. He hit his head against the pavement, messed up his leg, and you could, almost see his brain moving. So they fixed him up, but he was a good business mind, but no business acumen. He opened a store, and the man that furnished it out for me, as the man put him in a refrigerator, he didn't carry any of his products. He carried the products from somebody else.
Oh.
And the guy came to get rent from him. He refused to give him any rent. So he put him out. But you could be talking to him, and he would just stand in space. Didn't say a word. Didn't even answer you. Didn't look at you. Just stand. So
now which ones are still living? You said there's 3 of you guys still alive?
I'm the oldest.
Okay.
One of the younger boys under me passed. So the youngest boy is living.
Okay.
My youngest sister and me. So we're the bottom 3 out of the bottom 4.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. The one that's younger than my sister, the one next to the youngest, passed. So it's just the youngest boy, the youngest girl, and myself.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So now, you worked at the A&P as a teenager, right? Or
Late teenage, like.
and then so after that, so and you were in high school and did.
Yes, I finished high school, and I got married when I was 18,
Uh-huh.
and we stayed married. I had one daughter, and when the baby was born, the girl's mother, her grandmother raised her. She grew up with a grandmother in Alabama. Her mother lived in Ohio. So when the baby was coming, the mother came down and stayed with her during the birth. I was working at A&P then. All right. So when the baby was born, she talked the daughter into going back with her to Cleveland. So the daughter left, went to Cleveland.
Oh wow! Took your baby with her.
She said she told people that she insists that I go to work and she let her take care of the baby, because if anything had happened to her daughter, she was gonna sign the paper and take the baby.
Well, how could they do that if you were married?
No. That was in her mind.
Oh, okay.
And what she did, if they didn't know, people didn't care if she had told them that this was her daughter, she wasn't married, they would have just taken her word for it. She would just sign and left,
Okay. Okay. So you had to just acquiesce.
No, I would have had to, but the daughter said she wanted to go home with her, go home with her, so she just left and went on with her mother.
Oh wow. So that must have been kind of hard.
Yeah, it was. I after a while I called up, but I went to Cleveland myself. I told her I was coming up so I could, take care of her and the baby, and I couldn't work it out. She had decided she wanted a different life,
Right.
and didn't work, so I went back home.
Wow.
And then I went into the military,
Oh, so what was that experience like? What branch, first of all?
Air Force.
Okay.
Yeah, I joined the Air Force,
Uh-huh.
and I went when I finished basic training, I went to Europe, went to England. I stayed in England for 3 years, and I came back to New Mexico, and then I got an early release to go to school.
Okay. So now, what was your job in the military?
I was a stock clerk.
Okay.
We took care of supply, base supply. Well, actually, this base I was at, it was the supply base for Europe, for all the other bases in Europe.
So I guess all that A&P experience kind of paid off in the military.
Oh yeah. I could take care of that good. Good job.
So that was during World War II?
No, I'm past it. My brother was in World War II. My older brother. I had two brothers in World War II. Abner, and he was in the Army, and my brother Freeman was in the Navy in World War II. This was the Vietnam War. I even missed the Korean War.
Oh, really? Okay.
That's a long time ago.
Yeah.
Korean War, World War II. You have very few veterans of World War II left.
Right. 'Cause my father was in World War II. He would be, if he was still living, he'd be 99.
Oh yeah, that's what I'm saying. You got a few people who are in their top 90s, and well, see, when I volunteered. There was no draft. I just volunteered kind of late,
Yeah. Because of the money, or just?
No, I don't know. I just decided that I wanted to get away, and so I joined the Air Force.
So did you have any regrets? Was it?
Oh no regrets. It was a wonderful experience. I sometimes think it would have been well if I had stayed in. Now my brother, David, he stayed in over 20 years and retired.
Oh, that's beautiful. So did you ever think about becoming a pilot or anything like that? Was that ever your?
I know I didn't think about becoming a pilot. I thought about becoming a commissioned officer. And as a matter of fact, when I got out and when I finished school, I thought of joining the Navy. I went and did a interview, and I was accepted, but my wife didn't want me to go. She said she didn't want no absentee husband.
Now, this is your second wife? Or your
Yeah, that's my wife right now.
Okay.
Well, no, the first wife has passed. You know, after I went to Ohio, about less than a year after she left, and came back, I didn't hear from her no more until, I don't know, maybe 10, 15 years after that,
Okay.
when I reconnected with my daughter.
So let's talk about the college years. What was college life like? And that's where you met your wife. And
Yeah, well, I split all this college business. I went I got out of service. I met a man, and that's when I decided to go into the ministry. I met a chaplain, and he talked to me about going to ministry. And then there was the chaplain at Stillman College where I went. He talked to me, and he talked to me. The man I met in the military talked to me about going to Lincoln University in Pennsylvania, and that's where I thought of going when I got home. But when I got home, this minister told me that Stillman College was a 4-year accredited college. Why don't I go there? And since I was at home and I was there with my mother and all,
yeah.
I decided I would go to Stillman College. So I went to Stillman College the first year, and the man who was head of the food department at Virginia Union University talked me into going to university. So I left and went to Virginia Union University.
Oh.
And I was there for 2 years.
Uh-huh.
And I decided that I wanted a degree from Stillman College. So I spent 2 years at Virginia University, and I went back to Stillman and did my last year at Stillman College.
Why was it important to have a degree from Stillman?
I don't know. I don't really know. It was my hometown. It was, I just decided that I would just reconnect with Stillman College because it was the first year was a good year. I liked the teachers. I liked the environment and all that kind of stuff. It's kind of like home place. You know, we had this lady who was in the religious department, had a little chapel there, Merle Williamson. She was a lady whose husband, whose fiance got killed, and she decided she didn't want to get married, so she just devoted her life to religious stuff.
Oh, nice.
And she was a very interesting person. The chaplain, I forget his name, we called him Dooney. But he was instrumental then. There were some other people there, Albert Wynn, and I just went back there to get the degree at that school.
Nice.
And when I finished, I went to Presbyterian Seminary for a year. I went to Union Theological Seminary.
So did you start preaching right out of college? Or
In high school, in college.
In college.
And then I went but then I went to Virginia University. Went to Union Theological Seminary, and I don't know what it was, but I decided to leave the seminary after the first year, and I went to New Mexico, and I worked with the church there, and then I left and went to California. And in California, I wasn't involved in religion much when I first got there for the first few years.
Right.
But later on, I became involved in church and started working religion again. And I went to, we went to Grace United Methodist Church, and there I decided to reconnect, and I got back into it, and went back to seminary. And then but I still worked outside the church with a full-time job, and I didn't get into the ministry again until I retired.
So now, what year in college did you meet your wife?
Last year,
The last
at Stillman College. I must have come back to Stillman College to get her.
Right. Now I heard a story about how you walked one girl to the store and walked back with your wife.
Oh, I walked this girl named Cherish Young. I walked her over there, and when I got over there, I started talking to Claudette, and I realized that I had completely ignored Cherish. So I walked Cherish back. I walked her back, and that was the last time I walked her in place.
Oh, wow.
I started dating Claudette.
So now did Claudette wait for you when you walked her to
Oh no, she was with somebody else.
Oh.
She was with another guy. So we all walked over there, and she was with this guy, and I just started talking to her. Got to be interesting, and I just but then I realized that, hey, I walked this girl there, and I walked her back.
Ah, that's funny.
And then I, talked to Claudette, and we got together, and that led to a proposal and acceptance of marriage.
How long did you guys date before you proposed?
Probably 3 or 4 months.
Oh, so you knew right away.
Oh yeah.
Did you know? Now they say, the minute you lay eyes on your wife, that's going to be your wife. Was it like that for you, or did it take a little time for you to get to know her?
I don't really recall. I don't know. It was just I just knew that I wanted to be with this girl.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, she was beautiful. She's still beautiful.
Oh yeah, yeah.
So yeah, you did good.
Oh yeah.
You did
I think so. Yeah.
So now, how long have you guys been married?
Since when is that? 58.
Okay, you know you got to answer this question right.
42,
She goes,
52, 62, 63 years.
All right now.
Yep. That was 63.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. And so now you had one child with your previous wife, and then
We have 3.
When did you start having children?
And we had 3. We had one kid right away, about a year or so after we got married.
Okay.
A little bit more than a year after we were married.
What year was that?
59.
Okay.
Well, actually, it was the next year,
Okay.
because we got married in 58.
Okay.
And Denise was born in 1959.
Right. Wow. And then after that, what?
Well, then 62, 3 years later, we had a daughter, another daughter, and in 65, our son.
Okay.
That's Denise, Dominique, Denise, Dawn, and Daryl. All D's.
I was about. So, why the D's?
I don't know. Because look, Denise is DD,
Yeah.
Dominique Denise, and then there's DL, and then DW. I guess then I decided I use some more of the alphabet.
Oh wow. So now, how? Tell me about how they were as children, how you parented. What was your parenting
Well, I
style?
tell you, parenting is. I guess I was a little bit like my dad. I was always trying to be into something. So I'd have to admit that in the beginning I didn't do too much parenting. The wife took care of the kids too much,
Right.
pretty much. I was always into something, and I think I was a little. Regrettably, I was a little negligent in the beginning. So the beginning, the wife took care of the kids. Later on, I started showing interest when they were getting up in high school, and elementary school I with Denise, and then high school, and all that kind of stuff.
Hold on 1 second. The audio dropped out. Okay, there it is. It's back.
As I said before, in the beginning, I didn't do too much. But I would go out someplace. I'd be tired and all that kind of stuff. Sometimes I'd sit in the car and the wife would take them out through the park and all that kind of stuff. And I started kind of getting more interested in the kids when my son got in the California Boys Choir. So I realized that I was I was losing out on the family. So I started taking care of him and then getting involved in what the other girls were doing. But they were good kids. The person who was the most rebellious, I think, was Denise. She had a big mind of her own, and Dawn, anything was okay with her. She didn't worry about anything, didn't care about anything. Anything was okay with her. but with Denise it wasn't. And Daryl was a little kind of ambitious fella, you know. He wanted to always be doing stuff,
Yeah.
and he was kind of aggressive at learning things and getting involved in things, you know. He, but my Denise was, you know, she was strong-willed minded. She had set in her ways what she wanted to do, and she would do almost anything to get done what she wanted to do. She'd go ahead, and Daryl was about the same. Those two were, but it was a good family life. It was a good family life.
So who would you say is the most like you? Who would you say is the most like your wife, or is it a combination of?
Well, I think basically Denise is more like her mother with business sense and aggressiveness and strong will and all this kind of stuff. Don is kind of like me and we're kind of laid back and don't worry about stuff like that. And Daryl's probably a mixture of the two of us. Yeah, he's aggressive, smart, and he taught himself to play a flute. He wanted a gentleman in our neighborhood to teach him how to play a violin. And the guy said he was too old. I think he must have been 9 or 10, something like that.
Yeah.
And the guy said he had to start early. So he went to the library, checked out a violin, taught himself to play it, and went up and showed the guy he didn't know what he was talking about.
Ah, that's pretty good.
And he was playing the flute, and he was touring with the California Boys Choir. And they asked him who was his teacher, and he said he didn't have one, and they wouldn't even write him up. They said it couldn't be right. He couldn't be playing that well without him having somebody teach him.
That's really impressive.
Oh yeah, oh yeah.
Because the flute is not an easy instrument to learn.
Oh, yeah. He taught himself to play the flute.
Wow. Did you play any instruments?
Nah, I don't. My wife sings, but I not. But her family has a talent in musical.
Right. Well, now, when you were a pastor, right? You pastored churches.
Yeah, after I retired.
Okay. So now, what job did you do growing up? I mean, as you were raising the kids, I'm just trying to get some.
I worked as a grocery clerk for many years, and then I became probationer. I retired from the probation department.
Okay. And what city?
Los Angeles,
You
California.
in L.A.
Yeah. From the LA County Probation Department.
Got it.
I was working at this market, and I just decided. One of my friends became a transportation officer for the probation department, and he was talking about that. He working for the probation department, and I decided that I would go take the exam. You know, I already had a degree
Yeah.
and some graduate work,
Right.
so I decided I'd go take the exam. I passed it. Then decided to work at probation. But see, I still worked for the grocery store because I had to take a cut in pay to work for the probation department. To start out.
That's amazing. You made that much money at the grocery store, huh?
Well, the grocery business was good. You made back in those days. You made, I think, we was making. Well, I was making about $600 a month. I think it was. And if I worked overtime, you got time and a half overtime. And if you worked on a holiday, you got triple time.
Yeah, back then that was.
So I worked every holiday I could.
Clocking it, huh?
Oh yeah. And one of the major things about it, the man I worked for the last time, he would like to pay cash on the for the holiday. So he would save the taxes. He'd give you the money, but he would keep the taxes you would pay and stuff like that, and you'd come out ahead because that didn't go into your
Right.
wages.
Right. And then he didn't have to pay tax on you.
That's right.
And
Right, right.
so, yeah, that works.
Yeah,
That works.
it's good work. Good work. Good.
So, and then you went, then after that, did you start having any businesses or anything like that of your own?
Yes, I was always into something. I had a little barbecue place, and then I went into business with a guy that I supervised at night. Was going to business school, and he opened up a rental agency. And I started off with him, and I got 12% of the business. We broke up. We had fallen out after a while, and we went to court, and I had to sue him, and wind out that the business was worth $9 million.
Wow.
And my share would have been something like 1.2 million or better. But because I didn't work in the place full time, and because there were some technicalities with our agreement, the judge decided that I wasn't a full partner in all of the businesses, but he gave me part of some other business.
Oh, wow.
So I wound up getting about, I think, a little over $100,000. So to make a long story short, I got one attorney, and he turned out to be a real flake, and he stopped practicing all this kind of stuff. So I had to get a second attorney, and in the final analysis, all I got out of the whole deal was a reimbursement of the money that I had paid the first attorney,
Right.
because of the investigation fees, court fees, and all that kind of stuff. It just ate up all the money.
Wow.
Because one friend of ours, he said, you guys should go ahead and sell it, because he knew that if you had a prolonged court hearing and all that kind of stuff, fees would eat it up.
Yeah.
Take it up. So that's what happened. I retired, but then as soon as I retired, about less than a year, I think, after I retired, I took a job as director of a senior citizen center. And I worked at that for about 3 or 4 years. And then after that, I just retired, period. But I was always into something. I sold, I was a referral person for land sales. And every piece of land I sold, the guy gave me a bit of the money, and they call it a loan that you never had to repay. Because you in real estate, you can't share money with anybody unless they have a license. And that's when I got here, I did a little real estate rehabbing. So I've been busy, but when I retired from the pastoring the last time, I pastored a United Methodist Church until I was 70, and that was retirement age. And then I pastored a CME church for 4 years, and that was 74. That was retirement age. So I haven't done anything particular.
What cities are those in?
That was here in Las Vegas.
Okay. Both here in Las Vegas. When did you move here to Las Vegas?
1994.
And so what made you choose Las Vegas?
Well, I had a friend, a neighbor, a person I knew, who moved up here. We came up to see him, and he lived just at the end of this lake here, across the street on the other side. So, but I had thought of coming up here before. A place was for sale, and I told my wife, I said, let's buy it. It was a house on 5 acres of land for around $200,000. And but that was kind of big money back in the early 90s. And she didn't want to come up here. So I said, if we bought that piece of property, we'll be able to sell the land for $2,000, $100,000. And she said no. But we came up to visit this guy, and we would talk with him, and he was telling us about coming up here. And my wife said, if I could get a house on the lake, I'd move up here. So he called up one of his friends to show us some houses. And they showed us some houses that were off the lake and showed us one on the other side of the lake. And they came here and showed us this house. And this was a fixer-up. They wanted, I think, a little over $50,000 less than the going price. So we put a bid in on it for about $5,000 less than they wanted for it.
Right.
And we wanted it to be less. He said, don't go too low. And we were fortunate back in those days, the way they sold property, that if they put a bid on it, you had to act on that bid before you got another one.
Oh, okay.
See, and so the person decided to accept our bid, but they had a backup bid for it, giving them what they wanted for it, and a backup bid that gave them more than they wanted for it. So we were lucky we got through, bought it at that. And then,
Yeah, it picks up a lot.
no. We spent less than $50,000 picking that, and I guess it sold for about $80,000 less than the going price, than the asking price for these houses.
Nice.
What I want to say to my kids, regardless of what happened, I want you to always love each other, be a family, look out for each other, and work together. You know, you have what you've accumulated, and you'll have what we accumulated. Just take it and do the best you can with it. And like to say, well, actually, that I deal with, I only have one grandchild. I have two others, but I don't have no working relationship with them. That's by my first wife. I don't really hear from them. I tried to kind of talk to them, but it didn't work out, so I just let it go. But to my grandchild, I just wanted her to be her best, you know, think. I said to her earlier, ask them who the world belonged to. And I say this to my kids, and they start saying about this and that, and some people say, and I asked other people this, and they would say the white folks, the folks, I said the world belonged to the thinkers. So always think. Think. You know, whatever you do, think. Be wise. And I wanted to say to her, think. You know, think. Just, you know, before you do something, think. Just think. Yeah. Give it some thought. And be wise.
That's amazing advice.
Yeah. And to my great-grandkids, I want to say, we tried to put a legacy in place for you. So I want you to aspire to build on it. Don't do just what we did. Do much more. We reach for the sky. You reach for the stars and for anything you can find beyond the stars.
Yeah. No, we kind of going back and forth a little bit, but what kind of athlete were you growing up?
None.
Didn't play ball or nothing like
Didn't
that?
play any sports at all. No kind of.
Just work.
Okay. Well, worked and that's it. Mostly. Being a country boy, I was not attuned to the larger things in life really in the beginning. For instance, my wife wanted to go to law school, but she wanted to go to, it was an off school of law that I had a little respect for. I didn't think it was much. And so I said, don't worry about that. I'll take care of things. We're going to be rich. We're going to be fine. And she didn't go to law school. So. And then she wanted to go into business. She thought about it back, and she said she wanted to do a transportation company. But I didn't think much of that. And so she didn't do it. But she did go back to school, got a teacher credential, and all that kind of stuff, and taught school for a while. And I realized after a good while that I really didn't have any business acumen. She had all the business acumen. I didn't have it. And the things that I tried to do, because I had no business background and no affinity toward business, I wasn't successful. For instance, I didn't do what I was supposed to do when I was in the business. I didn't set it up right, and that's why I had a problem with it. That's why I didn't get anything out of it.
Right.
Okay, and I put money in there and I didn't get it back out of there. So that's it. You know, I got into a boat building business, and one of the partners took everything and ran off with it, and I left out on that. So the wife was probably pretty much she did a lot of financial planning and stuff like that.
Yeah.
They kind of set the stage for us to be where we are and where we got now.
Okay.
I mean, I was a hustler, but that's it. I just didn't hustle without pretty much a sense of direction.
So what'd you get your degree in?
History and English.
So are you a good writer?
Used to be fair.
Yeah.
I don't write anything now.
Yeah.
I have, when I started, after I retired from probation, I had to write police reports. And then I got a job as a placement coordinator. And this, all I did was place kids, and all I did was just write small reports. I didn't write any big reports at all. We found a foster home. I just licensed the foster home and did the paperwork to do that. So I used to be pretty good. I was a pretty good speaker and pretty good writer. I was a member of Toastmasters for a good while, and I won some awards speaking in Toastmasters. But outside of that, I just didn't. I used to write poetry. I wrote 100 poems, and I lost them. I didn't even know where they are no more.
I was just about to ask.
Yeah, I remember a few of them, but
Think you can share one or two with us? Off the top of your head?
I wrote one called Ecstasy, and I don't remember that, but I think I've got a dozen of them in there. But I don't remember them. My memory is pretty good. If I find them, I'll show them to you.
Okay.
Sure it does. But I don't know what happened to the book. I had a book with 100 poems, and I let somebody have it. I thought I let somebody have it to edit it, but they said I didn't. So I don't know what happened to it.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's tough.
Yeah.
Tough break there.
Yeah.
So, tragedies and blessings.
Oh, yeah.
Tragedies and blessings. It's like, and I guess that's just life.
Oh yeah, we had things. Well, was like tragedy the way my two grandsons were taken away from us, you know. And there were situations where we had to kind of go through a little something to get to what we wanted, you know.
Yeah.
But we had some time where we kind of disagreed, and my wife and I, we sometimes argue, and she said, well, I want to get a divorce. I said, I can't do that. We can't handle that. I can't take care of two families. I got to take care of you and the kids, and I can't be, we got to stick it out, you know. Yeah. So we were able to come through it, you know, to get through it all.
What's the secret to a successful marriage?
One of the things, you got to give each other space. You have to respect each other's individuality. And, a minister said to me once, he said, with him and his wife, he said the attitude they took toward one another is whatever they did, whatever they said, there was no malice in it. They did it meaning well. They thought they were doing the best for the family. And I kind of decided that when folks make mistakes, it isn't, or if they get angry, if they do something, they say something, it isn't because they don't care. It's the circumstances that created the situation. So what you have to do is get beyond the circumstances in order to have it flow smoothly.
That's amazing advice. I'm going to definitely check that, put that in the back of my mind.
You can't hold grudges, and you can't faulting people, stuff like that, you know.
That's right.
You have to get over them. Forgive and forget.
Yeah. Yeah, because life is too short to just be angry all the time.
My attitude toward it is too long. You don't want to suffer through all that. Life is too long. Be right here too much. Because when you mad and all this kind of stuff, the folks you're mad with are enjoying life and you are suffering.
Yeah. Oh man, that's great. That's great.
Yeah, you'd be surprised. You angry and upset and can't sleep, and what you're worrying about is meaningless, and who you were about angry with are going about their business enjoying life.
Before we go, can you recall your grandparents and maybe your great grandparents, some of the ancestors and some of the
I only recall two of my grandparents. That was I think it was my grandmother and my grandfather, and that was very vaguely. I can remember seeing them come to visit us and getting out of the wagon, but that's all. We weren't. So we were out in the country, and folks didn't get around to see each other much, especially if they lived a good ways away. The only way you got there was a wagon and all that kind of stuff, and I didn't even get to visit too much with my uncles and aunts. I didn't hardly know them. I know my Uncle George and Uncle Doc. I remember those two. But I had an Uncle Fed. He lived not too far from us. I never even seen him.
Oh, wow.
Uncle Fed and Uncle Charlie. And my uncle on my mother's side, I forget his name, Virginia Harris, I think it was.
Uh-huh.
That's about all I remember. Virginia Carey, that's about all I remember. And they had a cousin named Claire, which was the daughter of someone. But I don't remember too many of my uncles and my grandparents.
Did your parents tell you stories about their, how they came up and how they?
Not really. My father's daddy, he was in slavery. He was 13 years old when the Civil War was.
Okay.
And his master took him to Civil War with him to be his, what you call him, by his valet, or to wait on him. And he brought back one of those sabers those from the Civil War era. The bottom end of it had rotted off. And it broke, and it just had half of it. Now I forget who he gave that to. He gave my brother Ike a Winchester, had a Winchester, and he gave one of the other brothers the sword. I don't remember which one he gave it to, but those are the only two things that I know from them, and that's all I remember about my grandparents.
Okay. Are there some things that you wish you could have done that you didn't have a chance to do, or?
Oh, no. There are some things that I think would have made life a little richer if I started out to get a higher degree and I didn't get that. I think I would have benefited from spending more time in military and doing what I could, cause like my daughter, she went to school in the military, and that. It wasn't that popular when you could do that, go to school and do that. But overall, I have had a somewhat fruitful life, I worked within the frame of my background, my knowledge, and my understanding of life then. Now, had I came up under different circumstances, had I had different parents who were doing things that I'm doing now, I probably would have done more. But that's just wishful thinking. I don't even give that much of a thought. Yeah, I don't brag, but I did pretty well for myself. We don't have to want for anything. We have a little stuff left to give to the kids. Some of them will need it, some of them won't. So, there was some tough times, but most of it were fruitful.
Yeah.
We